I was already standing when she said it. My fork froze halfway to my mouth, metal hovering in the air. My name suddenly sharpened into a blade. "Pack your things," my mother said. Smiling for the room like this was a joke everyone was meant to enjoy. "And stop relying on the family." The clink of silverware landed too loudly. The roast steamed, thick and fragrant, filling the silence she'd just carved open. My pulse didn't race. It didn't stumble. It went perfectly still. That was when I felt it lock into place, like a trap snapping shut, and I knew before I even sat back down that someone had made a serious miscalculation. I didn't argue. I didn't ask her to repeat herself. I walked to the guest room without a word. The hallway felt longer than it ever had, stretched tight like the house itself was holding its breath. Family photos watched me pass, frozen smiles from holidays I'd paid for. I folded my shirts carefully, with the steady focus of a surgeon. Socks, charger, passport, essentials only. I left the door open. Didn't bother hiding the process. Let them watch me disappear in pieces. When I came back, the table had gone quiet. No one met my eyes. The air tasted metallic, sharp at the back of my throat. I set my bag down beside my chair and stood there, waiting. They were staring at me like I'd violated some sacred rule. Not the rule about gratitude. The rule about silence. The rule about never reminding them who kept the lights warm, who made vacations seamless, who smoothed emergencies before they reached panic. The rule about never saying the word funded at a family table. Dad cleared his throat, then thought better of it. My brother studied the grain of the wood like it might absolve him. My aunt's mouth moved, but no sound came out. My mother sipped her wine, lips tight, eyes polished. She'd practiced that expression for years, authority varnished with concern. Something had been off all afternoon. The glances, the pauses when I entered a room, the way my mother's phone stayed face down, buzzing like a secret she didn't want to acknowledge. I'd noticed. I always noticed. I just didn't react until I understood. I hadn't always been the problem in this family. I'd been the solution, the fixer, the quiet sponsor, the one with a steady hand and no appetite for applause. When the business loan stalled, I wired the bridge. When Dad's back went out, I paid the specialist without asking. When Mom wanted the holiday lunch done right, I booked the caterer and paid early so nothing could go wrong. I learned young that love in this house was transactional, just subtle enough to pretend it wasn't. You didn't ask. You anticipated. You didn't announce. You absorbed. The first crack had been small. A missed call. Then another. Meetings rescheduled with vague excuses. A spreadsheet I didn't recognize flashing open on my laptop, then disappearing. I told myself it was stress. Holidays did that to people. But secrets have a smell. And once you notice it, you can't pretend you don't. So I started listening, not eavesdropping, observing. Mom took calls in the pantry. Dad stopped asking before making purchases. My brother mentioned a new plan he couldn't quite explain. A line item in the family account shifted categories overnight. Money moved. Money I supplied. Confusion softened into hurt. Hurt hardened into something cleaner, sharper. I checked timestamps, access logs, permissions I didn't confront. I documented. Slowly, carefully, without emotion. They had decided I was temporary, convenient, a resource they could rearrange. They told themselves I wouldn't notice, or if I did, I'd swallow it. I always had before. I stopped funding quietly. Just enough to test the structure. Just enough to see who would panic. No one did. That told me everything. Revenge isn't loud when it's done right. It's patient. It reads the board twice before touching a piece. I scheduled calls I didn't attend. Let them wonder. I nodded at plans I knew would collapse without my signature. I watched my mother's confidence grow brittle, watched her rehearse the speech in the mirror, the one where she put me in my place, the one she delivered at lunch, like a performance she believed she'd mastered. While she practiced, I prepared. Receipts, emails, bank authorizations with my name in bold, termination clauses highlighted like veins beneath skin. I looped in accountants who owed me favors and lawyers who didn't need explanations. I chose the moment carefully, public enough to sting, controlled enough to be undeniable. Then I waited for her to tell me to leave. Back at the table, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't smile. I am leaving, I said. And since we're clarifying dependencies, let's finish the list. My mother tilted her head, confused. The room leaned toward me without realizing it. Effective today, I continued. The mortgage assistance ends. The business credit line is closed. The vacation trust is dissolved. The health coverage add-ons revert to baseline. Silence fell, not loud, not dramatic, just absolute. Dad's face drained of color. My brother's fork slipped from his hand. Someone laughed once, too sharp, and stopped. My mother's eyes flicked, calculating. You can't, she said. I already did. I slid my phone across the table. Screenshots, dates, confirmations. I let them read. She reached for the phone, then stopped. Her face went blank. Not angry, not sad. Empty. The look of someone realizing the flaw was never there. You told me to stop relying on the family, I said softly. I listened. The unraveling was quiet. No shouting. No pleading. Just the slow collapse of assumptions. Dad tried to speak. I shook my head once. My brother stared at his hands like they might confess something. Mom finally found her voice. You're being dramatic. I lifted my bag. This is me being precise. I walked out before anyone could follow. The door closed behind me with a sound that felt like punctuation. Outside, the air was cold and clean. I didn't rush. I never rush when the game is finished. That night, my phone filled with messages I didn't answer. Apologies wrapped in logistics. Love spelled with numbers. I archived them all. In the weeks that followed, the house learned new rules. Bills arrived. Calls went unanswered by institutions that no longer recognized their authority. The business faltered. The vacations vanished. The family learned what silence costs when it's been subsidized for too long. They stopped calling eventually. I didn't lose a family. I shed a liability. What changed wasn't my bank balance. It was my posture, my breath, the way rooms felt when I entered them alone and unafraid. Power doesn't announce itself. It waits. It watches. And when it moves, it does so once. They told me to leave, so I did, taking everything that was mine with me.